Hi, good afternoon. Welcome back to WGU Live. I'm Aaron Silverman. We are here live at the 2019 SHRM Annual Conference. For those of you that are just joining us, we are here in the Las Vegas Convention Center, and we have been experiencing over the last couple of days talks and sessions and content around human resources and the workplace. And WGU is here with our College of Business to try and provide a voice to our programs that teach human resources, but also to help people understand the intricate connection between human resources and people functions and how that helps the organizations and workplaces to operate. And so we've been addressing several topics while we've been here. And this topic is going to be one of our most difficult and important conversations, where we are going to be breaking down mental health stigmas. For those of you that are just joining us, our motto the entire time that we've been at SHRM has been to be brave. And these are the pins that we are handing out and that are in line with a speech that was given by the keynote Brene Brown, where she discusses vulnerability and uncertainty and risk and emotional attachment to those feelings. And her message is to be brave and address that vulnerability. And we're embracing that topic of being brave. And right now we're going to talk about mental health stigmas in the workplace. So I'm very, very lucky and happy to be here with some panelists. Becky Melton, who is with WGU. She's a course instructor in some HR programs. She'll give an introduction here in just a second. And Andrew Morton, we're very, very excited and lucky to have you. He is the Director of Social Engagement and is part of the Society for Human Resource Management.
Thank you for having us.
So thank you for being here. Becky, if you want to just give our audience a quick introduction to who you are.
Sure. I've been a course instructor, professor at WGU for 8.5 years, teaching human resources courses and staffing, and also an introduction to human resources for people who aren't going into HR but are planning on being managers in IT or accounting or sales and marketing. So it's my honor to be here with you today.
Thank you. And I know that you actually have a broader background, which is actually very important to our discussion about mental health. Can you give us just a quick background on the work that you used to do?
Sure. I have 11 years experience as a vocational rehabilitation counselor and helping people with disabilities find work and maintain their independence. So seeing employment from both sides of the desk, so to speak, and helping prepare people with disabilities for an interactive conversation or about accommodations.
Right. Wonderful. Thank you. Andrew.
Well, my journey to SHRM, I was a little bit of a circuitous one. I spent 21 years in the Army after college. I tell people it was probably because I was an English and theater major, so nobody was knocking on my door. But it was a transformative experience, those 21 years. You never think you're going to be in there for that long, and it was really about 7 different 3-year journeys. Transitioning from the military in 2012 was probably one of the most difficult challenges I've ever experienced. And I will tell you, a lot of people thank us in the military for our service. I'm going to turn to my left and thank you, Becky, for your service as an HR practitioner, because without somebody like you who helped me try to identify what my next purpose mission was, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. So I will tell you, there are many servant leaders in HR, as many as there are in any military uniform. Working with SHRM now, doing our social media, but I'm transitioning from that role, and I'm very honored to be a part of our knowledge and certifications team's effort to empower HR and to empower veterans to help each other figure out how we can reintegrate veterans back into our workforce.
Wow. That's incredible, and thank you for both your services, also for recognizing the importance of the network around people. And as we get into this discussion, we're going to find out and address the fact that it's not just veterans, it's not just a couple of people in a workplace. These are people issues, and we are all affected by mental health in a much larger way than I think most people understand. So for our audience and those watching, if you guys have questions or comments, please go ahead and leave them in the comment boxes as you're watching. We have people standing by that are going to be fielding those questions, and we're going to try and address those on air as best as possible in the time that we have. If we're not able to get to all the questions, we do apologize, but we'll try and leave what we can in the comment sections. You can comment with the hashtag WGU at SHRM. That's WGUATSHRM, and that'll send your question directly to us. And again, we will address those as much as we can. So to get started, I just wanted to go back to a quote that I heard the president of SHRM say, Johnny C. Taylor. Incredible speaker.
Yeah, he really is.
Incredible
leader.
speaker, and you could, incredibly, you can tell just by the way he approaches the audience and how he speaks. And he mentioned that workplaces are where real social change takes place.
Absolutely.
And he was talking about this in relation to disabilities, and that includes mental health. And it's true, when we spend so much of our time in organizations working and as units of people, and so it makes sense that change happens amongst organizations. Andrew, when we first started talking about this panel, you had mentioned that about 25% of the workforce faces mental and behavioral health challenges, and that's by a study done by the World Health Organization. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. A recent study done by them just really indicates the breadth of the challenge that we're all facing. So on obviously a scale of different types of mental health challenges, 1 out of every 4 workers in the workforce. And I think even more sobering than that is, even if you're a worker in the workplace who yourself personally may not be facing depression or anxiety, a family member may be. And in this day and age where we're asking so many people to bring work home, our employees are going to bring home to work.
Right.
And if I have a son or a daughter who's facing a challenge themselves, then as an organization, I need to be prepared to embrace how I'm going to support that challenge. So, in this place where we're trying to build better workplaces for a better world, the lines are really blurred between what is work and what is home.
Right, absolutely. And, we say 1 in 4, which that's a big number, and people may think, I feel happy most of the time, I may not be affected. And it's a good point that just because you may not be affected, someone in your network, someone in your family may be affected, and how do you deal with that? And Becky, you had mentioned ahead of time that just the breadth of the types of disorders. What comes to your mind? Just this list of disorders that you've seen, people that you worked with in your previous work. What are some of the occurrences in mental health that happen?
Yeah. Some of the things that we see most in the workplace are things like major depressive disorders, bipolar disorder, anxiety that can show itself either in a general way or as panic attacks. Some folks with schizophrenia or personality disorders may also qualify under the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, and need some type of accommodations. And as you mentioned, Andrew, that it may be a family member instead of my actual employee. It may be that family member that has someone with a mental health condition that needs some support or time off, or the ability to be flexing their hours, or access to services. Yes, absolutely. So. Yeah,
and it's very interesting to think that a lot of disorders, people may have the idea that mental health may equate to something that was diagnosed, that you have to take a pill for, and that's the treatment. But I was struck by something when we were preparing for this. And consider that nearly half of all workers report that they experience stress on the job. This has become so pervasive that Amazon Studios just recently put out a documentary entitled One Nation Under Stress. And people talk about it all the time. We hear this verbiage in our workplace and in our lives daily. How are you feeling? Oh, I'm so busy and I'm so stressed. Right. Well, consider the fact that stress equates to depression, anxiety, heart disease, other major illnesses. And if we're not addressing that stress, and that leads to further mental and then even physical limitations, that's a huge problem. And I noticed that there's research that supports that more workers are absent from work due to stress and anxiety than physical illness and injury, and it costs the global economy $1 trillion per year.
Yeah, well, I think, that right there, it's beyond the moral or ethical imperatives of helping people in the workplace that have behavioral health challenges. It's a business imperative.
Right.
For every dollar that you put into supporting mental health support at work, you'll get $4 back in productivity. That's the same World Health Organization survey. And back to a point that you had discussed in terms of the holistic nature of the approach, there's really three components that we're talking about here. There's the workplace itself. For those who have undiagnosed or no diagnosed mental health challenge, the work is stressful enough as it is. So there are things that we can do within the workplace beyond accommodations for those who have mental health challenges. The second component of it really is, what do you have in place for those employees who do manifest behavioral health challenges? And notice that I told you I had post-traumatic stress, but I did pretty well when the owl came behind me. Right?
I'm glad to see you smiling. Sage, thank you for being here.
I lost my train of thought.
But that's okay. So we're actually going to point to something on the screen real quick, because a lot of our audience are WGU students. We're broadcasting live on our WGU Facebook, and you just mentioned an employee assistance program.
Yeah.
And a lot of our students, the majority of our students, work full-time and go to school, and many organizations don't have an employee assistance program. They may not have the resources to provide employees assistance. We're fortunate at WGU to have that, and I know SHRM has a lot of resources as well. But for our current students, if you are experiencing any sort of stress, anxiety, mental health disorders, we have resources similar to an employee assistance program that provide you the opportunity to have free confidential counseling as well as some other services. And you can connect to those services. It's called Well Connect by calling 1-877-685-3269. And you can also go through your student portal to success centers and under Well Connect. And if you have any issues or you're even considering that, you can also reach out to your program mentors, who can always help provide and guide you some of that support into those services and help you access those or determine if that might be something that you need. So that will be on the screen, I think, throughout the duration, and we'll address that again and leave it in the comments at the end of our broadcast. So we actually do have a question from someone, and I'd actually like to tie it into something, Andrew, if I may. So before we address the question, which is how can I support without enabling loved ones? I'd wonder if you'd be able to give our viewers some of the background and history of your story, and how you came into this role, and the importance of this subject for yourself. And I think you would be very well equipped to address a question: how do you enable and support how do you support loved ones without enabling?
Well, I think it's a very important question, and it goes to the nature of how sensitive this topic is.
Right.
Because we want to help people, and we certainly want to be there to support them. And case in point, in my journey, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. I don't like to use the disorder word. We call it. There's a program that I went through called post-traumatic growth. So, and that's a whole different show in and of itself.
Sure. But more positive, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so, very much so. But to my particular story, I came back from Iraq in the mid-2000s and experienced, obviously, things there that did lead to my diagnosis of post-traumatic stress, and certainly manifested itself in ways in which my family noticed, and in particular my youngest son, who was only 4 years old at the time. And one day as I was driving him to daycare, he used to tell me when I was in Iraq, on the videos that he would send with his mom and his little sister, she would just grab the camera and knock it over. He used to tell me, I want my dad back. And well, on this particular day, I had been home for 6 months.
Yeah.
And my son looked at me in the rearview mirror, and for those of you who have kids, you know those rearview mirror moments in the car. He looked at me and he said, I want my dad back. And at that point, I realized that I needed support, I needed help.
Yeah.
And to your point here, the incredible need for resources and access to support people, whether they're veterans or not. And oh, by the way, students have an unbelievable amount of anxiety and stress. And many of your students, thank you very much, are veterans who are not traditional students.
You're right.
Who are coming back after deployments. So I can't imagine the stress that they're under in trying to complete their degrees. And I applaud you guys for doing all that you can. But I would say, back to the enabling point, I would say you walk the same fine line you do with any particular challenge that somebody's facing physically. If somebody, have you ever been to a physical therapist?
I have.
You know that they're not the nicest people in the world, right? Because they push you, they push your limits.
And it's painful.
And absolutely. So if someone has depression or anxiety, there are ways that you can hold them accountable to do their own work, to help themselves holistically. And you, even as a boss within their accommodations, can be very supportive. And we talked about this before, because the last thing somebody wants who has post-traumatic stress, anxiety, or depression, the last thing they want is not to be a part of something purposeful. And purposeful work is important. So I would say you don't enable people by holding them accountable, but you also keep in mind that some things are out of their control.
Most of the time, if we ask questions, hope you don't mind my piggybacking on that.
Please do.
If we ask questions, they'll tell us those answers. I try to remember in situations with someone who's under stress or anxiety, or if I'm talking to a student who says, I just can't do this anymore, to listen to them and ask questions about what they're experiencing makes it real for them. And I don't want to assume that I know, because we could line up 100 people with stress or anxiety or depression, and each one would be experiencing it in different ways, though there might be some common threads. So I would say one of the first things for sorting out that enabling versus loving them supportively is to ask questions and to try to be open-minded and curious while still respectful.
Yeah.
So it goes down to the communication and being able to understand. But these are tough conversations to have.
They are.
It's not as quantifiable as, say, going into a knee surgery, coming back with a physical limitation.
Right.
These are topics that a lot of people in the workplace, managers specifically, there's a lot of difficulty in talking about medical issues,
right,
especially mental health issues. So what do managers and leaders in an organization need to do to be comfortable in addressing and asking questions, and also allowing employees the comfortability to be able to say that they need help?
Right. Well, I would say that obviously you've been in this business a lot longer than I have in supporting people at work. So from the HR side, I'll defer to you on that. But I would say, as an employee who has come back from what I guess we call mental health break or leave, medical leave, the most important thing for me is to have a conversation with my manager, to talk to him or her about what my reasonable accommodations are, but also how I can get back on the team and roll up my sleeves.
Right.
Because, unfortunately, when somebody comes back from maybe a break in the workplace, that reintegration piece, particularly if it's a mental health break, their cubicle is not going to be laden with welcome back balloons, because
Sure.
some people may not even be aware of the fact that they were gone for whatever particular reason. And we have to be mindful of privacy, but we also have to be considerate to the point that employees are going to have a story that they may want to share relative to what they can do. And you brought up a great point of just getting back to the nuts and bolts of, let's talk about what your day is going to look like. Let's talk about how we get you back into the mission. Because we do know this statistically, that the recovery from these types of challenges is accelerated by purposeful work. So we want to be back. We don't want to be treated with kid gloves.
And by social interaction, that inclusivity, I am part of the group again.
Right.
And you bring up a great, we'll use the legal terms for it too, that interactive conversation that we think about probably very easily as HR people if someone's coming in for an interview or something, but we might neglect to do when someone's been out and then coming back from a break, as you said.
Yeah.
That's really important, what you said there. And in working with people with disabilities in the past, the other thing that I think can be very supportive and lovely is, what do you want to explain to your coworkers? Just to bring up that conversation in the midst of that interactive conversation and to really hear that person out and then decide together and take it from there. There's a learning opportunity there. But if we really embrace that diversity is everybody's differences and this is a difference, there's a learning opportunity there. So.
That's a good segue here about a learning opportunity, and I think we have a question that can help us in a learning opportunity. We've used terms like disability, mental health disorders, post-traumatic growth, and I think it's hard for people to equate feelings of stress and anxiety from short-term problems. A financial burden, a child that's going through an illness, a car accident. Short-term things that can impact how we're feeling mentally, but then we still have to go to work and we have to perform.
Right.
And so we have a question that says, what can I do about anxiety with mandatory meetings?
I think everybody has anxiety about mandatory meetings. The less meetings, no, I'm just
right. No, but it's true. Is it the meeting, or is there what's the root cause of the anxiety? Is it the meeting, or is there a root cause of the anxiety? And then pile on that, you have to go to work and sit in a meeting or focus on a project.
Yeah.
So how do people go about starting to address the root cause of stress and anxiety and depression? How can organizations help that?
Yeah, well, I mean, you bring up a great point, because normally we treat the symptoms or the outcomes versus necessarily treating the root cause. And I think for those who may not have a diagnosed mental health challenge, whether it's post-traumatic stress or depression or anxiety, being in the workplace, as we talked about, you cannot mitigate stress and anxiety down to zero. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
We have missions, we have roles, we have jobs to do. So for that everyday stress, I think you brought up communication is important, understanding what expectations are, being enabled and empowered to do your job with the resources that you have. That meeting is stressful because you're going in there, one, knowing full well that maybe you're not prepared for it. Number two, that your boss is not going to be kind to you because you're not prepared for it. And number three, the coworkers that you need to support you are not going into that meeting in good faith and being a part of the solution for whatever that challenge is. All of those things are about culture. An effective culture will reduce anxiety and stress tenfold. And we're here at SHRM this year talking about workplace culture so much because, to be honest with you, culture drives everything.
Right.
And I would say anxiety and depression, and this discussion we're having here, is not mutually exclusive, just creating effective culture in the first place.
That's right.
One of the things that we know about meetings is you can create the culture of a meeting also. So depending on whether the mandatory meetings that the question's about is something like this where there's 18,000 people, and some people are going to have anxiety perhaps about crowds, about strangers, about germs, if there's somebody maybe who has OCD, obsessive compulsive tendencies. How's that? I'll skip the disorder word.
Yeah.
But there's also, I have a coworker who, if she could be in a meeting but not be expected to speak, she'll be fine. So we again have to think about which particular aspect of the meetings is the concern, and then is there a way that that person can be
reasonable
included?
Accommodation.
Yeah, can be included and part of the conversation or part of the meeting without having whatever that is that would be the trigger come up.
And can I just turn things on their head for just
please do.
Sure.
You know, everybody knows what bullying is, right? But there's a form of bullying now that is more pervasive, and that's bullying of exclusion. Meaning, what if everybody else is going into meetings that you're not going into? Most people will jokingly say, I would love to not be in all the meetings. But honestly, if decisions are being made, if progress is being made and you're not part of that team, how does that make you feel from the outside looking in? So I think we also have to be mindful of exclusion. Back to your point,
absolutely.
One of the things that helps people recover from mental health challenges is inclusion.
Yes.
Is being a part of something bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying I want 20 meetings a week, but if the meeting is about a project that's important to me and my mission at work, I want to be a part of that meeting, and I don't want somebody to say, "It's okay, Andrew.
Yeah.
You don't need. We got it covered." So.
Well, and if part of that culture is this room, you don't have to be perfect in here. So you can make a mistake, or if you've got someone with Tourette's and they're making strange tics or something in the corner that people might not understand, it's okay. People don't have to be perfect in this room.
Yeah.
So that is part of the culture that you can establish.
Sure. A lot of people are just affected by other people and just different behaviors, or even accommodations. I think that some people experience discomfort in accommodations. A comment was made that a person feels anxiety because of another person's comfort dog.
Sure. Yeah.
So how does a company address inclusiveness with values and culture around everyone feeling equally included, and that they're having reasonable accommodations for everyone, but without feeling excluded?
That's right.
That may sound strange, that question.
No.
But this seems like this is a tricky subject.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I felt when I came back from taking my leave relative to my mental health challenge, I felt guilt about the amount of time I was gone and everything that everybody else had to do in my absence. So believe me, that person who brings that dog into work, they are probably appreciative and mindful of the fact that somebody may actually be anxious about a dog, if we're going to get very specific. And so maybe there is a way to accommodate both employees without one or the other, because you're 100% correct. It's not just about the person who's being reintegrated. It's also about the rest of the team. And the rest of the team needs to know, because who knows, someday down the road they may have a similar challenge, and they want to know that they're going to be afforded the same opportunity to get themselves back on their feet again as well. But I have had friends who have had support dogs in their workplace, and it takes time, I think, for people to adjust to that.
I saw an interesting comment in one of the articles I read in preparation, which was that you could have a dog committee. If you wanted to think of that for employee relations, that there could be a committee of folks who make sure that the parameters around having dogs in the workplace are understood and discussed, and they kind of handled any issues that come up. I think that's a really neat way of getting people involved.
It is. It's all, getting to talk, and oftentimes someone just needs to talk if someone's uncomfortable, and that's when hopefully you can lean on the resources. If your organization has an employee assistance program, or mental health is covered underneath a health plan. For our students, of course, they can refer to Well Connect, and no question is silly.
Not at all.
Discuss confidentially what is affecting you in the workplace, and how might you address that with your manager or a coworker, because if you continue to compound that anxiety, that's just going to lead to further issues.
Or divisions within a team.
Right.
That's a great point.
And that's the last thing that you want when you come back, whether it's for a knee surgery, maternity or paternity leave, or someone who's coming back after a break for a mental health challenge.
So, this is a topic obviously we could discuss for a very long time. Unfortunately, we're coming near the end of our time.
Okay.
And with if we had to discuss in 30 seconds from your perspective in SHRM, your background, what would be the one message you would want to send to our audience and to those in the workplace about feeling good?
Yeah, first of all, I would say thank you for the opportunity to talk about this. I would say it's about communication, and to really be successful in embracing and supporting people with mental health challenges, one, the individual has to have courage enough to bring to the attention of the people that can help support them. So you have to be courageous there and communicate. The second piece is organizations do need to be proactive about the resources that they have in place, but perhaps more importantly, they need to be willing to embrace those same conversations. And it's not just HR's job, it's going to be the boss's job, because what's the number one reason why people leave organizations? Bad bosses.
Bad bosses.
And bosses aren't bad purposefully, most of them aren't. They're just not prepared per se. So I would say reach into the resources, intestinal fortitude, and courage to have these conversations with your employees.
Absolutely, thank you. And Becky, I wonder if I might get your thought on a different angle.
Sure.
And as an educator that works with students and future leaders of companies and helps to shape that knowledge of moving into a workforce and into new roles from an HR perspective, what can you as an educator and educators in general do to help prepare leaders in business to be aware that these are issues that are important and that will ultimately help the business and organization run properly and be profitable?
I think educators can do two things. One is that the idea of people with differences, diversity, including mental health issues, should be woven throughout all of the courses, whether it's a staffing class or an employment law class or a training course. In training, we need to make sure we're prepared for people who learn differently or can't see or can't hear, that it's woven throughout.
Yeah.
And then second, to recognize that it is, as HR folks and as educators, it's our responsibility to know this subject well enough that we're comfortable, so that if people do come to us with questions, we can answer that both with compassion and with the business case, that you'll have a more productive, a more successful organization that has high trust if you handle these things correctly.
Wow.
Compassionate compliance.
There you go.
Compassionate compliance. Well, that's going to be it for us today on this Breaking Down Mental Health Stigmas. I really would like to thank you, Andrew, for sharing your experience and also the perspective from SHRM of how workplaces can start to address these mental health stigmas and break down those barriers. And Becky, to provide your experience as an educator and with our students and our audience. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Again, if you are a student of WGU and you are looking for resources to address your coworkers' anxiety dog or too many meetings, nothing is too small, because as was discussed, when these issues compound, that's when it becomes a bigger problem. So no problem is too small, and it doesn't have to be diagnosed. So if you're feeling anxious or depressed, or you're not even sure if you are, please reach out to Well Connect, 1-877-685-3269. You can also go to your student portal under Success Centers and go to Well Connect. And of course, reach out to your program mentor if you need help accessing any of those resources. And if you work in an organization that has an employee assistance program, please reach out to them. Don't wait to get help. We all experience these issues. So thank you so much for joining us today on this important topic. Our final session here at the SHRM Annual Conference will be medical marijuana in the workplace. That's coming up at 3:45 p.m. Eastern. And we thank you for watching, and we hope that you'll join us again at 3:45 Eastern for medical marijuana in the workplace. Thank you so much. Goodbye.